estos momentos acaba de temblar. Estamos en la Universidad Católica. El centro de vacunación de la Universidad Católica.
Nyuma ya hii kamio kesho, angalia. Nyuma hapa, angalia hapa. Hapa nyuma hii kamio kesho. Kwa gari yenyewe inakwama hapa. Donc ile kamio kingekuwa kama ile ndio ilikuwa ya kwanza kweli. Ile pale ilikuwa hapa kwa hii.
Well, if anybody's seen me on Facebook Live, we're being flooded right now in Waverly, Tennessee. Really scary. Oh, hell, I wish I had one of those. Oh, I do. Can you get...
Go. I think something just hit the side of the house.
I need a light. Heck, this is scary. Here. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
Всем привет, ребята! Сегодня у нас наводнение в США, штат Теннесси, город Уэрли. Там вода поднялась в районе реки достаточно сильно, но в принципе пока там не сильно катастрофически, если не одно но. В этом наводнении погибло 22 человека и 20 пропало без вести. В основном те, кто пропали без вести, попадают в первый список, а для наводнения такое количество погибших достаточно крупное количество. Скорее всего, вода застала людей врасплох, но это видно и по кадрам, где люди по голову в воде на первом этаже. Все это вызвано ураганом Генри, который, конечно же, ослабел. Он был практически никакущий, но масса после в нем была достаточно.
Looks like it could be like an alien spaceship. Oh, yeah. Oh, yep. You can't pull there yet. See, I told you behind it's cool there. That's why it looks like that. That's all the air coming. Cool air coming. That is amazing. It's going to go directly above us. Uh-huh.
Grabar, pero tiene un volumen de agua demasiado alto. No sé si lo pueden ver al fondo allá. Demasiada agua para un cristiano.
Mano, mira.
Mira, graba aquí la acera, graba aquí la acera.
Ah, no, eso es lo que... Mira eso. ¿Cómo hasta que pasa el muro ahí? No, agarra del muro. Mira, hasta que pasa el muro. No, ahora la... Ciérrala, ciérrala. Mano. Se te metió mucho para adentro. Se te metió...
Right now at 6:30, Tahoe, the worst air quality on the planet as the Caldor fire reaches just 20 miles from some of the most pristine water in the world, the Tahoe Basin.
122,000 acres now charred, with the fire only 11% contained. This morning, we're taking you on the ground to the front lines. This is Today in the Bay. At 6:30 on your Wednesday morning, good morning to you. Thanks for starting your day with us. I'm Laura Garcia.
And I'm Marcus Washington. Want to get straight to our big story this half hour. The fire burning so close to Tahoe. Meteorologist Carrie Hall, she's been tracking those conditions for firefighters as well as our air quality here at home.
Yeah, we've seen at times the smoke moving in parts of the Bay Area, but we've really been spared from some of that worst air quality. It's been moving off to our east, and we're going to see it moving back into parts of the North Bay today. For the coast, it does look pretty good, as well as the South Bay, the East Bay getting some moderate air quality, as well as Santa Clara Valley. Now, we are going to see once again that air moving over toward Lake Tahoe, some of that smoke creating the worst air quality in the world, and you can see how that compares to other spots like Chile. It's not even close. So we're, of course, going to continue to monitor that. We have a report from our Mike Tassell, who's right on the front lines of the fires.
And good morning. We're staying about 17 miles to the east of the Sly Park exit. I'm going to step out of the way, and you can see some active fire burning right here south of the freeway. It's a line of fire, your typical pattern as it comes down the hill or the canyon towards the river, kind of a zigzaggy pattern here. This is active burning, again, about 17 miles to the east of the Sly Park exit. This morning, there is no wind to speak of this morning, so this is a fire that, right now just via gravity, working its way down towards the river and relatively low to the ground flames. So not something up in the trees, not seeing a lot of torching or crown movement, but at this point in time, working its way down through the lower level fuels.
Students in the Amite County area are concerned about how the district is handling the rise in COVID cases. Some are calling for a virtual option for students and better communication from the district. There are only 3 schools in the district with about 1,000 students enrolled total in the district, and according to the Mississippi Department of Health Department, there are nearly 1,700 COVID cases reported in the county, with only about an estimated 30 students, teachers, and staff testing positive or have been quarantined since the beginning of the school year. Superintendent Don Cuevas wants parents to know that the schools are following the guidance provided by the Mississippi State Department of Health. The superintendent told us the district decided not to offer a virtual learning option this year because it wasn't effective when the district tried virtual learning last school year. Cuevas said he decided to increase the size of the staff to help any students who may have to miss days of school due to COVID.
If they are quarantined and they're not sick, parents can pick up the packets and work to do at the house. We can do that. If they choose not to, nothing's counted against the student, and we will catch them up on the work because, again, I've got extra folks sitting there waiting to help at elementary, high school. We've got different areas there set up, so we're not letting anyone fall through the cracks.
The district is requiring all students, faculty, and staff to wear masks at all times while on buses and in the building.
New developments in the fight against Delta and incredible scenes in Melbourne as Victorians shouldered arms against the virus, turning out in droves for the vaccine and bringing the vaccination target within reach. But Nat, a rush of a different kind into Queensland as the Sunshine State tightens the rules.
Koshi, big changes to Queensland's hotel quarantine system this morning. There is a pause on arrivals for 2 weeks. Anyone travelling from hotspot areas will have to stay put. There'll still be exemptions for people on compassionate or medical grounds. More than 5,000 people are in hotel quarantine in Queensland. Just over 3,000 are from interstate. Despite these measures, Queensland again recorded no new cases. Meanwhile, New South Wales broke a new record. The state recorded 919 new cases yesterday. 76 people have now died since the outbreak began, and 645 are in hospital. In Victoria, there were 45 new local cases, down on the day before. 9 are unlinked though, meaning lockdown could be extended once again. Tasmania leads the vaccination rate. In New South Wales, nearly 33% of adults are now fully vaccinated. In Victoria, it's over 31%. Then comes South Australia, Queensland at nearly 29% and WA at over 28%. Here's Koshi.
Let's get the very latest from our team of reporters. Bianca Stone, you're in Brisbane. Queensland has made entry into that state even harder.
Koshi, good morning. This is an extraordinary situation. Right now, it is harder to get into Queensland from interstate than it is from overseas. The Queensland Premier has announced a 2-week pause on domestic arrivals from hotspots. She says simply there is no room at the inn. Queensland is being loved to death. Right now, across 22 hotels in Queensland, there are more than 5,000 people quarantining. More than 3,000 of them are domestic travellers. The Anastasia Palaszczuk says that is putting pressure on our resources, and it is also putting Queenslanders at risk. So for the next 2 weeks, the only people allowed into Queensland are those with a medical or compassionate exemption. Not even Queenslanders are allowed to return to Queensland if they've been to one of those hotspots. After that 2-week period is up, there will be a new system in place here. People will need to reapply for exemptions. They'll also need to book a hotel. Koshi, these are the toughest border restrictions we've ever seen here in Queensland, with Delta, well, right on the doorstep, basically.
Yeah, international visitors getting preference to Australians. OK. Amber Laidler is outside Blacktown Hospital in Western Sydney. How are hospitals dealing with the COVID patient surge?
Good morning, Koshi. Well, we're seeing many of these hospitals across Western Sydney
continue to evacuate Afghanistan. You may want to donate to help refugees.
But there's a new warning tonight. Some of these organizations soliciting donations may not be real. 12 News consumer reporter Gina Marini has the details on how to make sure your money gets to those who need it.
The BBB tells me when events like this happen is when schemers will create fake organizations. The biggest takeaway is to make sure you know who you're donating to and that it's a legit company. Thousands of people continue to try and flee Afghanistan after the Taliban took control of the country earlier this month. President Biden spoke at a press conference Tuesday about evacuation efforts.
We agreed that we will continue to our close cooperation to get people out as efficiently and safely as possible.
But when a horrific tragedy or natural disaster happens, Paula Fleming from the BBB says fraudsters take advantage of people seeking to aid those in need.
They set up GoFundMes, they set up fake charities, if you will.
If you want to help those fleeing Afghanistan in need of safe refuge and funds, Fleming urges to do research before donating money to an organization.
Not just clicking on a link within social media, not just falling prey to an online ad.
She says it's important to know who you're donating to and how much of the donation is going to those in need.
Some are legitimate, but then for every dollar, 90% goes to them, 10% to those you are trying to help.
Fleming says there's a list of reputable charities on give.org. You can find that link and more donation tips on our website, WPRI.com. In studio, Gina Marini.
The Caldor fire grew by 3,000 acres overnight. The fire has now burned more than 126,000 acres, an area twice the size of Palm Springs, just to give you some perspective. Containment is up slightly, now at 11%. More than 460 homes have been destroyed, though, along with dozens of businesses. And firefighters on the front lines say protecting homes is their #1 priority, of course. The U.S. Forest Service says unpredictable fire conditions have made it impossible for evacuees to return home at this point. Crews along Sly Park Road are hoping to stop the fire in its tracks through what they are calling backburning.
We had fire crews coming through here intentionally lighting fires to try and stop the forward movement of this fire. By lighting this fire, we're able to consume fuels ahead of it.
So essentially, by the time the uncontained Caldor fire meets up with these backburned areas, it won't have anywhere else to go. It won't have anything else to burn.
Right. It'll basically be in a cage.
And crews are taking advantage of the favorable weather conditions right now, doing as much backburning as they can.
Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us. I'm Lisa Gonzalez. Fire crews and more resources are now focusing on the Caldor fire as it continues to spread. And now firefighters are making this the #1 priority in the state of California. Today, crews will have more favorable weather conditions, and this is great news for the thousands of people who do not know when they will be able to return home if they still have one. KCRA 3's Mike DeSalle was in the area of Kybers this morning to see how these flames are playing out.
Where I'm standing is the closest we've seen this fire get to homes along Highway 50 near Kybers. Specifically, we're talking about 33 Milestone Track. This is cabin number 22, and this is an area that has a line of cabins or homes that are just south of the freeway, Highway 50. This is an area where firefighters have already prepared and set a hose line between the cabins and the river. They actually have a hose line going across the river to that cabin, which is on the same side as the fire. Now, what I want to direct your attention specifically to is look at the way the flames and the smoke are moving essentially the flames of smoke hugging the hillside going back up towards the south. That means that, there's no wind, essentially giving that fire right there motivation to blow embers to this side. That's the way it's been throughout the morning. Crossing the fingers it'll stay that way, because as we saw on Saturday, this is a fire that's already jumped the highway, so it has that potential if the winds come back to do that. Along 33 Milestone Track just east of Kybers in El Dorado County, I'm Mike Tassell, KCRA 3 News.
And now let's go to Live Copter 3 flying over River Pine, where you can see a lot of smoke still coming off of the Caldor fire. Big plumes of smoke really high in the air again today. This noon hour seems to be pretty bad for the fire, especially right now. Look at how high we have to go just to see those blue skies overhead. Meteorologist Melanie Hunter is tracking the more favorable weather conditions for firefighters that they could be facing, which would be great news for them, Mel.
Yeah, so at least down at the surface level, the sustained wind speed I've been following shows these observations right here. So you have Highway 50, you have Highway 88, and then right here the Caldor fire. And you do see we've got that upslope flow. So we have that southwest breeze that is in place. And any of these observations in and around this area registering a light wind in some spots, but for the most part I'd say the wind is out of the southwest about 5 to 10 miles per hour. I've been seeing some of those gusts near 15 miles per hour. So as we continue to advance into the afternoon, we're continuing to expect a southwest wind anywhere from about 5 to 15 miles per hour, I think, in and around that Caldor fire area. You see the green shading, the yellow shading, that is the higher elevations, and along the ridge tops, that's where the wind could get a little gusty, some of those gusts up to 25 miles per hour.
Alright, you guys want to see how bad it is in South Lake Tahoe? This is at 7:30 in the evening time, and what you see right now is the whole city covered.
Schools are back in session, and as more people are sending their kids back into the classroom, there are concerns about the rising number of COVID-19 cases.
Yeah, there's a new development, though, in the debate on whether or not kids can be required to wear masks inside their schools. Disability rights groups are actually suing the state of South Carolina over the proviso that bans mask mandates in our schools.
They say the proviso violates federal laws that require schools to make accommodations for students with disabilities. News 19's Julia Kaufman has the story.
The American with Disabilities Act and the Rehabilitation Act are two federal laws that protect people with disabilities. Disability rights groups argue that South Carolina's proviso that bans school mask mandates violates these laws because it's unsafe for students with disabilities to attend class.
There are a population of students that cannot wear the mask or cannot be vaccinated and cannot socially distance. And so it is the responsibility of the schools to accommodate that student so that they can be in the environment of their choice and within their rights.
Kimberly Tiso is president of ABLE-SC, a plaintiff in the new federal lawsuit against South Carolina.
We have seen also individuals with autism having a difficult time wearing the mask, but they're required to have also very close range services.
Governor Henry McMaster was asked Tuesday his thoughts on whether the proviso violates federal law. Here's what he said.
I think it's totally inaccurate. We received a letter from the Secretary of Education about that, and what we are doing here is perfectly legal in my opinion.
He's firmly stood by his opinion that schools should not mandate masks.
There's nothing in the law or any policies that are prohibiting any parent from having their child wear a mask. If they want to wear a mask, they can wear a mask.
But as Tiso explains, some students with disabilities cannot wear a mask, and if others around them aren't masked, they could be exposed.
I've seen arguments, well, keep students with disabilities home. That is a very segregated mindset. Children with disabilities are just like any other child with a disability. They deserve to participate in school.
No court date has been set yet for this lawsuit, but the Department of Education has sent a memo out to schools reminding them of their ADA requirements. In Columbia, Julia Kaufman, News 19, WLTX.
Well, that memo that Julia is referring to was sent to all district superintendents last week, and it reminds the schools that they are required to accommodate students with disabilities. It says, in part, take a look at this. There are instances where the consideration of mask mandates.
The Rochester area may have been woken up by a bit of shaking Sunday morning. The U.S. Geological Survey says a 1.7 magnitude earthquake hit about 3 miles south of Rochester yesterday. There are no reports of any damage. You may recall earlier this month, another small earthquake rattled the Canterbury area. And today marks 10 years since one of the most powerful earthquakes hit the East Coast. On August 23rd, 2011, a magnitude 5.8 earthquake struck near Mineral, Virginia. It was felt as far north as Canada, as far south as Florida, and as far west as Arkansas. No deaths or major injuries were reported, but the quake did cause $300 million in damage. The Washington Monument, you may remember this, had to close for repairs for 3 years because of the cracks, and the Washington National Cathedral is still being repaired.
Story might make you itch a little bit. Experts say more mosquitoes are buzzing around northeast Wisconsin lately. NBC 26's Kelsey Dickinson tells us why that is and how long they might stick around.
More mosquito bites lately? Well, experts say you can thank the recent rainfall for that.
Whenever we have heavy rainfall events like that, it's not uncommon to have that followed up with some decent mosquito populations.
UW Extension entomologist PJ Leash says we're likely seeing what are known as floodwater mosquitoes.
And these are types of mosquitoes where the eggs are laid not necessarily in water, but in low-lying areas that are prone to flooding and pooling of water when we do get heavy rainfalls.
More mosquitoes means more calls for the mosquito squad of northeast Wisconsin.
Based on what we've seen, some of our annual seasonal customers, we are seeing a high population of mosquitoes right now.
On every job, owner Andrew Ratko walks around the property checking for standing water.
It only takes the underside of a bottle cap for a female to lay 300 eggs.
He dumps any amount that might attract mosquitoes.
Okay, so there's like a kid table back here. So as you can hear all the water draining out of that.
Based on weather conditions, these experts expect the mosquito population to remain high for at least a couple more weeks until the temperature drops to the 50s or 60s. Until then, there are ways to protect yourself. In addition to wearing repellents and long sleeves, PJ Leash and Andy Radka say the key is to take care of that standing water. The Mosquito Squad offers the 7 T's of mosquito control. Tip over areas with standing water, toss excess grass, leaves, and firewood, turn over large yard items that could hold water, remove tarps, take care of home maintenance needs that can lead to standing water, such as cleaning out gutters, team up with neighbors, and treat the area. Kelsey Dickinson, NBC
Behind
26.
me, you can barely see the Strip. Never mind our local mountains. They are not visible, all because of the haze and the smoke that's drifting into the Las Vegas Valley. Now, when we see that much smoke drifting into the Las Vegas area, they usually send out advisories for people who are sensitive with sensitive issues toward lungs to be very careful. But we talked to a pulmonologist today who said even those with healthy lungs should be very careful because all this smoke getting into our chests and into our lungs could make us more susceptible to COVID.
It's something we don't want to hear. Prolonged exposure to wildfire smoke may greatly increase susceptibility to COVID. Dr. Arthur Romero, a lead pulmonologist at UMC here in Las Vegas, says we should be aware of this, especially with this more contagious Delta variant.
There's actually data where in the Reno area in Washoe County, when their air quality is bad, they have higher incidence of COVID. And after that, the fact that they got COVID, their COVID is worse with bad air quality. So it's a double whammy.
While the air quality advisory in effect for the Las Vegas area will last through at least Wednesday, it's a good idea for people even with healthy lung function to be careful while being outdoors. Smoke particulate is microscopic, and when inhaled, it goes deep into your lungs where other particulate can build on it. Eventually, it would weaken lung function.
It's nothing we can avoid at the current time, right? You just have to, stay indoors for the most part, unless you really have to. And if you have to go outdoors, then you can help yourself by, wearing a mask.
Look at this footage that Hipperty got from our Fox 5 drone showing the smoke and our reduced air quality here in Clark County. Well, our smoke exposure is bad right now. It's nothing compared to what's going on in Washoe County, where it's rated as the worst in the country. That's because of the fires from Dixie and Calder are blowing into that area, making for very unhealthy to even hazardous air quality.
And so the big question is, what should you do? Well, the doctor said wear a mask. What sort of mask? These do nothing to get and prevent the soot from getting into your lungs. Neither do these cloth masks. The best ones are the N95 or the KN95s because they have enough layers in them to filter out any of the soot that could try to get into your lungs. Reporting live, Les Crittenden, Fox 5 News.
The Department of Health is announcing the first confirmed case of West Nile virus in the state for 2021. The department says it is the time of year when they usually start to see West Nile virus cases, and now they're urging people to take steps to avoid infection. The number of cases really varies from year to year. In 2018, 45 people tested positive. In 2019, 7 people tested positive, and it's spread by mosquitoes. Experts say one step everyone can take is dumping out standing water where larvae can grow. Katie Johnston for CBSN.
Has issued a West Nile virus alert. Town leaders were notified that a specimen taken on August 5th tested positive for West Nile virus. Hadley will now be on high alert for the West Nile virus. In order to protect yourself, health experts recommend wearing protective clothing when outdoors, avoiding being near standing water, use insect repellent as needed, and avoid being outdoors from dusk to dawn. If you become ill, see your health care provider.
Has been long awaited and seems like a big step, but will it truly make a difference in the fight against the coronavirus? 2 News reporter Caroline Morse is digging deeper into the approval and what you need to know.
Health leaders I spoke with say this is just the first step of many to encourage more Americans to get vaccinated. Well, here in Ohio, they are hopeful to see a slow rise in vaccination rates.
Hoping that people will take the approval seriously because some people have been waiting for the FDA approval.
An anonymous Dayton resident echoes local health leaders' reaction to the Pfizer vaccine receiving FDA approval. They say, I'm not vaccinated yet, but this does give me some peace of mind. I'm not anti-vaccine. I've just been waiting for more information like this to happen. Health leaders say residents seeking exemptions can still go through the legal process.
We're hopeful that it will take things further. In terms of exemptions, there's always a very much deliberate intention to encourage people to be vaccinated.
Even Governor Mike DeWine celebrating the approval, hopeful that it will encourage more Ohioans to get vaccinated. Now, with COVID cases on the rise and low vaccination rates among younger eligible Ohioans, health leaders are hopeful the state may experience a slow rise in vaccination rates due to Pfizer's FDA approval.
Yeah, I feel like we're walking up those big, long steps to the cathedral and hoping that we'll get there between herd immunity and vaccination and keeping those that are at highest risk safe.
And at this time, the coronavirus dashboard shows just over half of Ohio's residents have started the vaccination process. Live in the studio, Caroline Morse, 2 News working for you.
Waters rose. Countless people were trapped inside their own homes. An untold number of houses will now have to be demolished. Joe Street in Waverly was especially hit hard. Nearly all the homes are a total loss. That's where News 2's Andy Cordan went today for a heartbreaking look at all the damage.
So much devastation here in Waverly. We're on Joe Street, and this street has been hammered like every other street in town. X's on the front of the homes. Here you see 2 foundations. That means these homes were literally swept away. We have no idea what happened here. And now we're going to take you into a house where we also don't know what happened, but this is 405 Joe Street. And all we know is that this is one of countless 911 calls. And this call was harrowing. It was a woman who was in her house as floodwaters were literally coming up. I mean, look at this. This is about 4.5 feet high, and this woman was frantic. And again, we do not know what happened to her, but certainly the water was this high in this home, and you can see sediment everywhere, mud everywhere on the floor. You can see sticks and debris from wherever this came all over the floor. And the levels, you can see it's higher than the windows. The woman in this house was calling for help. 911 was overwhelmed. They just kept saying, "Ma'am, what's going on?" And you could hear the water behind her. We can only pray that she got out. We don't know the situation here. We know that they have searched in all of these areas, but the back door is open. This house is literally going to have to just be knocked down. It can't be cleaned. Every home that's still standing has a big yellow X on the side of it, just like that. That means it's been checked. It probably also means it's going to be demolished. In Waverly,
a team, including researchers from here in California, is trying to understand the threat from a climate-related event thousands of miles away.
And Spencer's back with us right now to show you the problem. It is a massive problem, Spencer.
Oh, it's a huge problem, Larry. And we're talking about the massive ice melt from glaciers in Greenland. And the measurements taken from the glaciers could have implications for San Francisco Bay.
With its rugged snow-covered glaciers, there's no confusing the coast of Greenland with the shoreline of San Francisco Bay. But researchers believe a climate threat there could ultimately become a threat here.
Greenland has lost more than 3 trillion tons of ice in the last 15 years, and that's enough to raise global sea levels. I mean, the entire planet by a centimeter, or about a half an inch.
Now, Josh Willis and a team from the NASA Jet Propulsion Lab in Pasadena are in Greenland, trying to answer an unnerving question. How much ice will melt and how quickly? The answers could have a direct effect on how we plan for tidal rise in San Francisco Bay.
1, drop. 6 feet away.
The mission, captured in this NASA JPL footage, is called OMG, for Oceans Melting Greenland. For the last several years, Willis and his colleagues have been dropping sensors around the perimeter of the area's massive coastline. The goal, to measure the stunning amounts of water that are being flushed out of the glaciers as they come in contact with warming ocean waters.
Now, we kind of think of Greenland's ice sheet as a big ice cube that's melting under a hairdryer, but really it's more like this ice is getting flushed off of the ice sheet in these huge rivers of ice.
And it's coming as the area is experiencing a year of extreme ice melt. Fellow JPL researcher Eric Rinho says the shifting weight is so immense it can actually cause subtle changes in the Earth's crust.
And making sea level rise farther away, in particular in California and San Francisco, we are affected by what's happening in Greenland and Antarctica, even though it's very far.
Still, how much the melt will affect sea level rise and how quickly are key unknowns. They could drive everything from how we plan to protect our current bay shoreline to what areas will still be viable in the future.
It means that we really don't know how much sea level rise to prepare for from Greenland. We just know it's going to be a lot. Is it going to be a whole lot or just a little lot?
Critical information that would help us better plan for a long-term climate threat, a threat that could ultimately reach our shores. Now, one unsettling note, last week, rain, not snow, rain fell on Greenland's highest summit for the first time on record. That is an indication of rising temperatures there. And of course, once again, the point of the whole piece is that rising temperatures there and the melting ice there can affect us as well. Now, the University of California's Energy Institute is researching how to price energy.
Multiple cases of West Nile virus have been found in horses across Idaho. According to the State Department of Agriculture, the virus was confirmed in Ada, Blaine, Canyon, Lemhi, and Twin Falls counties. The disease was so severe for one horse that it had to be euthanized. Veterinarians are monitoring the other horses that are recovering. A vaccine is available to help horses defend against West Nile. Now, the ISDA recommends you talk to your veterinarian about it. You may also call your mosquito abatement district to find out about local mosquito populations.
Johnson & Johnson is looking to get its booster shot approved by the FDA. Doctors tell Chris Hoffman it could be key in the fight against the rapidly spreading Delta variant.
Steve Kochanowski got his J&J shot back in June.
Everything went well. I didn't have any side effects or anything like that. I had a little bit of numbness in my arm, but other than that, nothing.
He wanted the one-and-done shot and will roll up his sleeve again if the J&J booster is approved.
I see no reason not to. I mean, to me, it's just like getting your flu shot booster every year.
Right now, doctors are waiting on more data to be released about these boosters and feel it will still be a few months before you need to sign up for one. As for any side effects, that is another unknown for healthcare leaders.
I would not expect anything worrisome with a booster dose, but we'll need to see what the data show.
As proactive as these shots may be, infectious disease physician Dr. Amish Adalja feels a booster is not currently needed.
For me, the threshold to need a booster vaccine in a healthy individual is to see people getting breakthrough infections that are severe enough to land them in the hospital. That's just not happening.
But when the time comes, systems are looking to avoid the trouble that slowed the initial vaccine rollout.
From what we've heard, we have a good supply of all 3 vaccines.
Doctors say these boosters help, but people still need to get their first doses if we want the pandemic to end.
That's what's continuing to propagate the pandemic.
The CDC says about 14 million Americans received a J&J shot.
Round of storms in Michigan, leaving thousands without power across Metro Detroit.
Here's an updated look for you at the DTE outage map. It shows that right now more than 16,000 people are still in the dark.
Today, the Michigan Public Service Commission ordered utility companies to report more data on how this month's weather pattern has affected customers and what more can be done to reduce the impact. 7 Action News reporter Faraz Javid with more on this story.
This year is just unprecedented. The storms and the wind and the rain has just been really high. It's crazy.
Commerce Township resident Dwayne Arquette is one of the many residents who lost power due to last night's storm.
About 8:30 last night, the wind came through and there's a big boom and shook my whole side of my house.
The Michigan Public Service Commission met Wednesday morning and approved an order that will help utility companies to be better prepared for strong weather patterns.
Everyone who pays for electricity has a right to expect their utilities to anticipate extreme weather events.
Member utility companies will provide data on areas of improvement, including restoration efforts, customer communication, and actions to address bill credits for customers, as well as sustainable solutions for tree trimming.
Through this order, the Commission has an interest in gaining more understanding and gathering more information on the cost and benefits of undergrounding wires along our distribution system.
Thanks to Michigan Public Service Commission's order that were issued earlier this morning, utility companies across the state will be working towards reducing the impact on customers due to severe weather conditions in the future. From Commerce Township, Faraz Javid.
With more and more companies like local hospitals and General Motors requiring their employees to get the COVID-19 vaccine, this is also turning some people away from applying to jobs.
It's my body, my choice.
And Brianna Golden doesn't think an employer should tell her to get the COVID-19 vaccine.
I feel like they shouldn't force you to get a vaccination. That's a medical thing that doesn't have anything to do with the job.
She's currently job hunting in the hospitality industry, looking for server and bartender openings.
I wouldn't apply for a job where they're going to require me to do it because that just makes me feel uncomfortable.
Others say they got the vaccine for comfort.
At the end of the day, I just think there's no reason for people not to get vaccinated.
As Delta variant cases continue to surge, Emily Weber with staffing agency Creative Circle believes vaccine mandates at work could become a norm.
We are seeing clients who are beginning to do so, but I would not say the majority as of now.
Weber connects companies with local graphic designers, copy editors, researchers, and more.
There could be a chance that some workers might turn down opportunities because of a vaccination requirement.
She says every time an employer adds another requirement, it makes it harder to fill the role. But she also believes that a vaccine mandate will boost recruiting when applicants find out their future coworkers have the shot.
Another thing that we found is people want to be safe when they go to work.
This is exactly how Jacob Goldberg, who works in Detroit, feels.
If I can save one life, I'm getting vaccinated.
But he understands why some people are reluctant.
Whenever somebody, I think just society, when you're told to do something, sometimes people have a hesitation towards it.
Especially in the workplace.
Making it mandatory is going to make it even more difficult. It's kind of a double-edged sword.
Terry Buchanan is the general manager at Aptree Staffing Solutions in Romulus.
If you completely eliminate, these individuals, you stand a chance of not having, the workers that you need.
She believes the happy medium is making it optional.
Leaving it as a personal choice, but taking additional precautionary measures such as weekly testing and mask wearing.
As long as I wear my mask and I'm keeping my being social distant, it shouldn't matter.
Emily Weber with Creative Services also says to help fill vacant positions, if you can make a position remote, you should make that option available for applicants. For 7 Action News,
unfortunately, that death toll has continued to rise. We're listening now to a press conference. We are getting the most up-to-date information, being told now 20 lives were lost here in the flooding. No more are missing. Here's what they have to say
about the people that were involved in this. One of the things that we pulled the trigger on early on was reaching out with TBI. Chief and I talked about this. We were able to get some of our victims that may have been hard to identify. We were able to get them identified through DNA. I don't understand all of that part. It's very technical to the scientists, but this equipment that TBI has and that was able to come in here and help us get identifications made within an hour and a half was very, very important in this operation, and it helps these families get closure and closure quick, and we're very proud to have that accessible. And I just can't say enough about the people that run this operation. Like I said, the ones that were boots on the ground, that were out there, the responders. My hat's off to you. And I have the utmost love and respect for you.
I will mention this technology that the TBI brought is new. It's new.
Sheriff Davis speaking there. He's from this area. This is his beloved community. He says these are friends, people he has known for a very long time, ultimately completely affected, loss of life, loss of homes, loss of businesses. And as people move on with this grief process, they're trying to figure out, where do I live? Where do I work? We speak to one man who lost his entire business and is upset that he can no longer have a place of employment for those he calls friends.
Now, all of this was just full of machines. People look like little elves over here doing their thing. This would be all cardboard boxes. All these cans would be stacked up here. You had some 400,000 cans.
Waverly native Ronnie Harbison spent his entire career building Adaseal on the west side of Waverly.
I'm talking millions of dollars here. It's gone.
Product pushed into piles, waterlogged, destroyed.
This guy over here, he came down from Nashville. I don't know him from nowhere. He came in and said, "Can I help?" I said, "Sure you may."
Harbison's most proud that his success allowed him to employ more than 20 people.
They relied on me, and I relied on them. Stick with me. We'll make it one way or another.
But right now, that path is unclear. The company wasn't in a flood zone, so insurance won't cover the damages. Harbison's praying for federal assistance.
A day after Ohio State announced a vaccine requirement, students are weighing their options. The school says every student, staff, and faculty member must get their first COVID shot by October 15th. NBC4's Catherine Ross spoke with several unvaccinated students and explains why their reactions are mixed.
More than 73% of the campus community here is already fully vaccinated. But for those who still haven't yet gotten their shot, they tell me they're still carefully considering what to do next. Word of mandatory COVID vaccinations is drawing a mixed response at Ohio State Wednesday morning.
Initially, I was kind of bummed out. Seeing how busy campus has been, it's actually a little comforting for me.
I'm not the biggest fan of it personally.
Most students coming to the Jesse Owens North Rec Center Wednesday are here for mandatory COVID testing, but some, like grad student Shania Phillips, are now starting the vaccination process.
I'm a healthcare worker in Philadelphia, and we're mandated as well, so I was already planning on getting vaccinated.
She says she was waiting until the shot received full FDA approval. It was a similar concern for freshman Eli Masters. Even after the agency fully approved the Pfizer vaccine, he says he wasn't in a hurry to roll up his sleeve until he heard about OSU's requirement.
I don't like the idea of anyone being forced to be vaccinated or any medical procedures being forced upon them.
The university says everyone must start the process by October 15th and be fully vaccinated by the following month. This sophomore says the mandate may derail her college plans.
I'm not really for vaccinations, and I didn't really plan on taking it, and so now it's mandated, so I'm not sure if I'll be able to continue being on campus.
Not everyone agrees with the requirement, but many say it's critical to take some precautions at a large campus like Ohio State as case numbers continue to climb.
Being as though a lot of professors are moving back to the in-person format, I think it's safer and best for them to try to get everybody vaccinated.
Now, the university says there could be potential consequences for those who choose not to get vaccinated by the spring semester. The details about the reporting process should come out in the next few weeks. Local 3 in Columbus, Catherine Ross.
In our everyday life. To some people, this concept is terrifying, but for many others, it's an exciting idea. And many companies here at 𝐃𝐎𝐍'𝐶 are working on bringing that idea to life. From robot baristas to those that can act as personal assistants. Here, experts explore possible directions in which robots can become a worthwhile addition to the human workforce. And some of the projects have already become international sensations. One of those being Promobot, a Russian company that has established itself as one of the leading manufacturers of robot assistants in Europe. Their models have already been delivered to 40 countries around the world, and the robots have earned their stay as workers in places like hotels, airports, expos, government service centers, and even schools and health clinics. Let's find out what it's actually like to talk to a robot. Hello, Promobot. What do you do here at 𝐃𝐎𝐍'𝐶?
Here I am working as a consultant. I answer questions and help people.
It's not hard to see why people grow a liking to these robots. They actually have something of a personality. And just check out those dance moves. Although robots like Promobot are considered harmless, there are still many concerned with the dangers these robots could pose to humans. But not to worry, these robots are laced with a whole bunch of safety measures.
As for safety features, the robot has a red button at the back called mushroom. Other safety sensors specific to this robot include those that measure the distance to the obstacle. These are integrated, ultrasonic and infrared, which allow you to achieve greater accuracy.
And even the robots themselves know all the laws of robotics by heart.
The 3 laws of robotics are a set of rules devised by the science fiction author Isaac Asimov. A robot may not injure a human being or, through inaction, allow a human being to come to harm. A robot must obey the orders given it by human beings except where such orders would conflict with the first law. A robot must protect its own existence as long as such protection does not conflict with the first or second laws.
It seems that not long ago, this all would have been considered science fiction. But today, an entire robot service industry is already working on bringing robots and humans closer together and finding a way to work side by side. Let's see what this robot service industry looks like. Promobot, do you want a coffee?
Has tested positive for West Nile virus in Vigo County. There are still not any human cases known in Indiana, but health officials still want you to take steps to protect yourself. Know that mosquitoes are active in the late afternoon and from dusk until dawn. When you're outside, make sure you wear insect repellent with DEET and try to wear pants and long sleeves. You can also take action to get rid of breeding grounds, get rid of items collecting water in your yard, clean clogged gutters, flush fountains and bird baths periodically, and keep your yard trimmed.
Your first alert weather.
More and more smoke is continuing to filter in. The only good news that we have about it is for the change from yesterday is slightly not as bad because the winds aren't awful today like they were yesterday. Yeah, I mean, yes, it did feel pretty good to have a little bit of a breeze yesterday, but that breeze is exactly what caused the smoke to be here in the first place because it's been traveling from Northern California throughout the past 3 days. Currently 80 degrees in Idaho Falls and definitely not foggy conditions, but smoky conditions throughout the area. You see how vast the fire and smoke has been, and it's been traveling ever since Sunday after those storms came through on Saturday night into our area locally. And here's our Vipercast smoke showing it's most of the smoke currently right now in the area has still been lingering from last night. It hasn't been really refueled per se during the day today, but as you go into the overnight hours and into tomorrow, you know, it pretty much just lingers around. If anything, it just moves slightly to the west. Much of the chunk of the smoke is at least, but could get some refueling tomorrow, which is not great news because of one main reason, and that is the winds are going to pick up once again. 20 to 25 mile an hour sustained winds, maybe down to 15 and 10 at times, but it's going to be very windy and very gusty again tomorrow like it was yesterday to pick up more and more smoke and add it to there. But something it will do, and something we've had actually, which we haven't really expected heading into today, is showers. Yes, very light and very isolated in certain areas and not very big as well, but it's still something there in various regions up just north of Rexburg for you. As we get into the night tonight, definitely they shouldn't get too much more intense, maybe staying a little around our area just in general, but besides that, and heading into the overnight hours especially, it should begin to die down. But this is going to be a theme for that the next couple days. These tiny isolated showers tomorrow located a little more near Salmon and near the border with Montana, and heading into Thursday, a little more cloud cover still persistent with some partly cloudy skies and some showers leading into Du Bois and Rexburg possibly for tomorrow. All of these storms, again, nothing too much to be concerned about. It should be like the ones today where they're very isolated and they're not very strong at all. But we still overall throughout much of the region, just in general, still sticking with hazy conditions throughout the area. That's going to be the main theme moving forward for the rest of the week, unfortunately. Temperature is going to get started out in the 50s tomorrow morning. Heading into tomorrow, about your highs are about going to be about 5 degrees hotter tomorrow than they were today. 87 in Milan City for tomorrow, 82 in Lava Hot Springs, 85 in Rexburg, 82 in Driggs and Ashton expected tomorrow, 78 in Mackay, 83 in Salmon as well over there.
The more staff members we have vaccinated, the less likely my mother or other residents will be isolated.
Bill Borelli says his beloved 95-year-old mom ended up in lockdown at United Methodist Communities, her South Jersey nursing home, after a staff member there tested positive for COVID. It's one of 124 New Jersey long-term care facilities now dealing with active COVID outbreaks. Borelli says this particular staffer was actually vaccinated.
There are some breakthrough cases where a vaccinated staff member will get COVID, but the root of it is the unvaccinated staff members getting COVID, which triggers testing, lockdowns, isolation.
So Borelli cheered the nursing home's recent announcement UMC will require all associates to be fully vaccinated by October 15th, citing the tremendous spread of the Delta variant and the overall well-being of the residents we serve and the people we work with. The strict mandate grants only limited medical or religious exemptions. It's just one agency, but
it is big news that they're requiring vaccination, and they set an example, and hopefully will be followed by other facilities.
Because we're seeing more cases in long-term care facilities, we're seeing more shutdowns of visitation.
New Jersey's long-term care ombudsman pointed to surging COVID cases statewide impacting nursing homes and other facilities where COVID killed almost 8,500 people and often left survivors to cope without family visits in the early days.
That light at the end of the tunnel now looks like a freight train heading our direction because the number of outbreaks is going up. The calls that we're getting around visitation and isolation, they're going back up too.
State health officials report more than 90% of long-term care facility residents are fully vaccinated versus about 74% of staff. But that's a statewide average among 570 facilities. Individually, they differ widely. More than 50 show a staff vaccination rate of 50 to 60%, while nearly 40 long-term care facilities report a staff rate under 50%, ranging all the way down to 7 places where under 25% of workers are vaccinated. That despite Governor Murphy ordering all long-term care staff must get vaccinated by September 7th or face weekly testing.
That's a problem. That's a problem when you have 95% of the people living in long-term care who are vaccinated, but still find themselves, unfortunately, in kind of a quasi-lockdown situation.
That's very concerning because we know that our immune systems weaken with age. The Biden administration also announced that nursing homes should require their staff to be vaccinated against COVID-19 or risk losing federal Medicare and Medicaid funding.
The Biden administration's threat to withhold
your insect repellent because the Maryland Health Department says an adult living in the Baltimore area has tested positive for the West Nile virus. No other details about the person are being released right now. And while the virus had already been detected in mosquitoes in Prince George's County, this is the first confirmed human case in Maryland this year. Now, most people show no symptoms of West Nile virus. However, people who are immunocompromised may become seriously ill.
Following a swarm of earthquake activity, Kilauea is now at level orange watch. The USGS says the activity began around 4:30 yesterday afternoon and continued into the night and into early this morning. The swarm of quakes began around 1:30 a.m. Along with the changes to the ground surface, officials say as of 2:30 a.m., over 100 earthquakes were reported, with the largest being magnitude 3.3. Scientists believe small amounts of magma are pushing through rock beneath the southern caldera. No lava has reached the surface, and Kilauea
Right now, we're going to send things back out to Chief Meteorologist Danielle Breezy. The images, Danielle, that we have seen of this event have just been absolutely incredible. A viewer has sent you several videos that show how quickly this rain fell. My goodness, can't wait to see that.
Yes, Erica, you know, I'm bringing in my friend Linda. Now, Linda and I have been Facebook friends for a long time here, and you've been a Waverly resident for a long time.
Long time, almost 40 years.
And now you sent me these pictures directly in these videos. You
Yes,
know,
ma'am.
tell me about Saturday, what you saw.
Well, Saturday, like I was telling you, it was raining. It started about 3:30, real quick, and it was raining, and it just kept getting louder and louder. I live on the hill, but I thought my roof was coming off.
Right.
So I took a quick video. There was no wind. It was just straight rain, and that lasted till about 8:15 or so. So I come down here, and I could get in the plaza over there. They were bringing out people in boats. They said it already went down like 6 foot. They were bringing out people in boats, and I was watching stuff just float out of the grocery store and down the stream. There was a guy with 3-4 people tied to a tree. They said he'd been there over 2 hours, and the boat was rocking in the current. Nobody could get to him. Rescuers, the boat, because the main current they see was coming through here. And I talked to a lady. They were sitting there. They had nothing. I mean, they were soaking wet because the rain was still coming down, and all they had was clothes on their back. And said their neighbor lost some children, and so all you can do is sit and watch and pray for them, you know. So, and then it's just not just this area. It's miles and miles and miles this direction. It's miles that way. It stops almost before you get to New Johnsonville. in every subdivision on that end of town. And Monday I was helping some people going through their house, and the house across the street just collapsed. And the other houses are just all off their foundations and stuff. So it's just, I've never seen anything like this.
But you said one thing that's really good. You said you went to your church, and what happened? Tell me about that.
Well, we went to church, and a neighboring church brought some stuff over, and they're calling from all over the United States, sending donations for us to use in Waverly. And we had a missionary from Haiti that sent some money, and as much devastation they had, she said she knows what we're going through, and she wanted to send our town, and they've been praying for us. So
that is such amazing stuff. I mean, see that the world cares about Waverly and Tennessee, which is a good thing. Now, I want to get real quick, and thank you for your testimony, by the way, about the weather. I want to talk a little bit more about that because we do have that heat advisory in effect for Trigg, Christian, Todd, and Muhlenberg counties. That's in effect through Thursday at 7 o'clock. That's because temperatures are really warm. We're in the 90s, but feels like temperatures in the upper 90s, even feeling like triple digits in some spots. Storm Tracker Radar Network right now showing a few storms out to the east. Otherwise, everybody's nice and dry and just hot thanks to high pressure. High pressure has been dominating our weather, keeping us nice and dry. But things are about to change. We were talking about this. The tropical satellite shows 3 areas of concern. And as we zoom in, there's one that is going to head into the Gulf potentially and could impact our weather as we head into the middle of next week.
The summer short tourism season is just about a week away from the unofficial end, and it's being capped by more swimming advisories from the state DEP. 13 beaches were put on watch Tuesday afternoon after water samples taken showed high levels of fecal bacteria. Those often spike after heavy rains like we just had with Tropical Storm Henri due to stormwater runoff. Now, 4 of the locations are ocean beaches in Long Branch, Asbury Park, and Lock Arbor. The other sites are at bays and rivers from Long Beach Township in Ocean County on up through areas of Monmouth. Swimming in or making contact with the contaminated water can cause nausea, gastrointestinal symptoms, even flu-like symptoms. As of this afternoon, results from a second round of tests taken by the DEP have just 9 beaches still under advisory.
Wicker was out today. She was on Sunset Drive. That's another area hit hard. She spoke to a woman who has to rebuild from scratch.
Sunset Drive is likely one of the hardest hit streets we've seen all week. Most of the families here losing some 90% of their household items. Now they're left to make a decision on how to rebuild.
I'm almost 60 and starting over, but you know, I'm thankful to be alive.
It's a question often too difficult to answer. How do you rebuild?
I lay in bed wondering about that, you know, how and where. You know, I've applied for FEMA. I have no idea, you know, if I'll qualify for anything. All I can do is take it one day at a time.
Gail Tarpey found herself trapped inside her Waverly home with her small dogs. The water rushing in so fast, she didn't have time to get out.
The water out here was just rolling down the street. I could look through my, living room window and see it, and I saw things. I saw hot tubs flowing by. I saw people's cars flowing by. Everything, and it was rushing by.
Now she's left with this huge pile of mud-soaked personal items that used to fill her home. Where she goes from here, she just doesn't know.
I have a prospect of moving into another place within a couple of weeks. But of course, the financial issue of that is I'm still paying mortgage here, and we'll be looking at paying rent there, and like the double thing.
Meantime, she's got help from family and organizations like Christian Aid Ministries. Together, they will press forward, not just today, but for the many months ahead. In Waverly,
U.S. military is set to leave Afghanistan in less than a week, but thousands of people still need to be evacuated.
And some fear that everyone will not get out in time. CBS 2's Skylar Henry has the latest from the White House.
The White House and the Pentagon say the U.S. is on track to fully withdraw from Afghanistan by the end of the month.
Since the U.S. and coalition forces began the evacuation, to date, approximately 88,000 have safely departed from Afghanistan.
The Biden administration says about 10,000 people are at the Kabul airport waiting for a flight out. Officials have expressed confidence that the airlifts will be completed by the August 31st deadline.
If you're an evacuee that we can get out, we're going to continue to get you out.
On the 31st.
Right up until the end.
Some lawmakers believe the White House is running out of time to finish the operation, noting that the civilian evacuation is just one step in the process. It could take several days to withdraw the remaining troops after all the civilians are out.
You know, you can't just say, okay, you know, midnight, we're stopped now, we'll just pack up gently, you know.
Lawmakers say the rush to get out may leave some U.S. citizens stranded in hostile territory.
Whoever's at the airport has a chance of getting out. There are a lot of Americans and interpreters all over the country of Afghanistan that we can't even get to anymore.
President Biden has said he won't extend the withdrawal deadline unless it's absolutely necessary. Skylar Henry, CBS News, the White House.
Taliban leaders say that they will view any U.S. extension of the August 31st deadline as a violation
and
of
welcome
withdrawal.
to 22 News at 5:30. I'm Don Schiffman. So the rain and the wind from Tropical Storm Henri has impacted farms across the region. 22 News Storm Team meteorologist Allison Finch explains how the corn at one local farm weren't up for pictures this morning.
Well, good evening, and that's exactly that, Don. These corn crops were not just up for photos, but actually weren't standing up at all this morning when Kelsey Bars went out to check on the crops. Kelsey Bars from McCarthy Farms in Feeding Hills took to Facebook Monday evening with 2 photos of their corn crops completely knocked over.
I noticed immediately when I came out that our corn was just flat. You know, usually it stands up nice and tall. I came out and it was completely flat, all of it.
After speaking with Kelsey, she recalls gusty winds, which were associated with Henri, that moved through Feeding Hills the past few days. The peak wind gusts were around 40 miles per hour. Since the roots of these corn plants aren't as strong as tree roots, the winds from Tropical Storm Henri had an easier time blowing them over. On top of weak roots, the corn crops were also weighed down with water. The National Weather Service in Boston reported 2.77 inches of rain fell over a 54-hour period. This 54-hour period includes the time of the storm.
The younger corn that we have definitely has popped up a lot quicker. The older corn that we have is starting to come up a little bit more slowly, but it's getting there.
With the drier and sunnier weather today, many of these plants have already begun to stand up again. It is expected that all of the plants will stand up within the next few days as we receive more dry weather. Kelsey also notes that she does not think this will ruin the corn crop for their farm this year. Working for you live in the studio, Allison Finch.
Masks will be mandatory after all in some Maine school districts that had announced earlier that they would be optional for students and staff this fall. News Center Maine's Alex Haskell looks at why things are changing right before most Maine kids head back to the classroom.
We had some local cases of the virus.
Back and forth, masks off, masks on, masks off, masks back on again for Brewer students and staff after Superintendent Greg Palmer decided to drop the optional masking plan passed during a school board meeting earlier this month.
This is the most fluid safety situation I've ever faced in my 27 years in public education.
One factor in the shift to universal masking is the Maine CDC's updated standard operating procedure for positive cases in schools, which allows students exposed to COVID-19 cases in the classroom to forego quarantine from school as long as there's universal masking and students aren't showing symptoms.
We're hoping for a lot less quarantining. So that's the key, is keeping the buildings open, but when I say that, it only matters that they're open if students are in them.
In response to changing COVID conditions and needing time to implement pool testing, Herman School Department Superintendent Jim Chass has also told students and staff they're masking up this fall.
It just made a lot of sense for us to slow down a little bit.
Chass says restrictions will gradually be reduced as pool testing becomes fully established. Under the state's pool testing program, unless parents opt out, students would provide swabs weekly for PCR testing.
We will probably do some sampling with my own central office this week to test the process. We will establish pools.
The mask tug-of-war is also battling out in Lewiston. The school district's optional masking policy could be next to go during an emergency meeting later this week.
I'm hopeful that whatever policy is adopted allows us to make those decisions that again, keep our community safe, keep kids in school, but also that we can be adaptive if the situation changes.
That was Alex Haskell reporting. And that emergency meeting is scheduled for 5:30 tomorrow evening at the Connors Elementary School.
Inspectors with Mahoning County Public Health tell us they'll be keeping an eye on an area of Austintown after finding a mosquito carrying the West Nile virus. This afternoon, larvicide briquettes were tossed into retention ponds near the middle school that's on Raccoon Road. We're told a pool of mosquitoes caught in traps near the school campus were found to contain the virus, which is usually passed from infected birds. The mosquitoes then carrying the disease can infect humans.
By applying the larvicide, what we're doing is keeping the mosquito larvae from maturing, therefore keeping them from ever being able to bite that infected bird or bite people.
Experts say the briquettes will last for about 6 months. Workers say they'll return to this area early next spring to put down more of the larvicide in the wetland areas.
Moving on now to some breaking news just in out of Greene County. Public health there says a mosquito sample has tested positive for the West Nile virus. The mosquitoes were from the Bellbrook area generally. The exact area with the positive sample is south of 725, east of Wilmington Road, Wilmington-Dayton, north of Sugar Creek Metro Park, and west of Lake Monroe.